In this last segment of making basic tonal corrections, we'll set the tonal range for print newspaper values and web values. So take a look at them here in the highlights for newspaper, where I'm probably going to go 15%, a little more drastic. And in the shadows, I'll go 85%. For web, there are no changes that are going to happen to the image once a visitor or a viewer sees it. So we're going to go 0% in the highlights and then 100% in the shadows. For this photo, it's ideal for that. So I want to take and go to the Photoshop and turn the visibility off for the magazine settings that we just set up. And so we'll start again. For both of these tasks, we're going to be using the exact same target. So we've done half the work already when we set the targets. So I want to go back to the adjustments layer and choose levels again. So it's the same kind of task. But for newspaper, now we'll just do the white and the black eyedroppers, and so we'll double click on it, and for this one we're looking at the highlight being 15%. That may seem like that's rather dark, but it will work out just fine for newspaper. The newspaper will soak that up and it will lighten it up a great deal. So we're relying on ink on paper. As always, don't accept the defaults unless you want to. And I'm going to go in, zoom in close to my target. Okay, and white eyedropper, match the white. Okay, now you'll notice that it got a bit darker. And also notice in the properties for the levels that this bar that's on the bottom here, when we pull either end in or both, that lowers the contrast. So instead of white, it brings it down into more of the gray tonal area. Okay, so let's pan over, as we've done before, to the next target. So I need to double click again on the black eyedropper. Okay, for the levels in the properties panel. And I need to set the cyan and magenta and yellow to 0 again. And the darkest I want it is 85%. You might still want to talk with whoever you're working with that's going to be printing this. The printer, their consultants know best on what the tonal range would be. If they're telling you, oh, don't worry about it, I would caution, yes, worry about it. Use this method if anything. Okay, and so we're zoomed in already, and I want to click on my target. Okay, that deepens that color quite a bit, and you notice that where the histogram is, that's what this chart here is, and it's brought it in, and so that makes it a little bit more contrasty. And it will fill in the middle range quite a bit. So, okay, let's zoom out and we'll take a look at that. Now, you might also pull the slider that's in the mid-range a little bit, one way or another. But I would caution with newspaper, this should work out just fine. But if you're not seeing enough mid-range, then you can pull it one way or the other to deepen it. Usually pulling it towards the white will deepen some of the areas and fill them in just a little bit. Be very careful about doing something like that. Okay, it depends on the picture. And it's up to you for those kinds of decisions. All right, I'm going to name it the layer news. Okay, so I have that straight on. So that's for the newspaper. This was our original, so I'm going to turn the visibility off for the news. And one more time, let's get one of these going for our color for the web. So again, sample the white point. And actually this is set up perfectly. So we're 0 in the black and also all the colors as well. Click OK, and I'm going to zoom in. I do like to zoom in to make sure I don't miss that target and get it in the right spot, right on top of it. Okay, that brightens it up a bit. I'm going to pan over to my second target, black point target eyedropper. Double click on it. Set the cyan, magenta, and yellow to 0. And this one for web, we can go all the way to 100%. I'm going to make this photograph really snap, so let's go ahead and click on that target. Alright, that deepens it quite a bit. Now you might think that that might be too dark. We could lighten it up even just a tiny bit here, the slider, just an itty bitty bit. Okay, and that's okay too, but it gives us a really good idea of what we should be doing. And if I go to the info panel, I might even go ahead and measure that. We're at 98, 99, okay, for that, and that's okay. So let's zoom out. And yeah, that really looks good. This is what you see is what you get for what we want to see on the internet. Okay, once we've got all these, and I'm going to rename this layer. This is for web. Okay, then we would save our file. Now I saved it initially as a Photoshop file. So anything that you get, you're going to want to save it as a Photoshop file so we can keep these nice channel or adjustment layers in here. And I want to resave this to update it. And once and for all, that is all of the different adjustments that I have in here. So I put named it adjusted. Okay. So how do I get it so that it's going in different directions? I'm going to end up with having this original Photoshop file. You always want to have your original with the layers and adjustments intact. Then you can save each of these situations out as a different file type, and it depends on what it is. So for web, we actually like to optimize our work. And I believe I have another video somewhere around here for optimizing artwork from Fireworks. It works the same way in Photoshop as it does pretty much in Fireworks. So I want to do this. Now that I've saved it as a Photoshop file, I'm going to go and in the flyout menu of the layers panel, let's flatten the image. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's kind of scary. All right, but I'm going to go back to the original in just a moment. So we're going to, in Photoshop Creative Cloud, instead of having the Save for Web right available under Save As, they've replanted it in under Export. So what you're looking for is Save for Web, and the Creative Cloud version, it's Save for Web is under Export. Okay, so that's what I want to do. And basically we have this pop-up menu. We're looking for a JPEG because it's not flat areas of color. It's a nice tonal range. We pick a very high quality. We're optimizing for the web, and the only thing I need to do at this point is save. Okay, there's more ins and outs of saving for the web, but this is a fairly straightforward task. Now I want to rename this, okay, and I'll save this in amongst my Photoshop samples. Instead of levels adjusted, it also brings me the format, file format extension. So I'm going to name it, adding web after the name of it, just so I know what it is. And when you optimize, there should be no white spaces in any of your naming convention. For web, we always name it with no white spaces in the name. So save that. And what that does, it saves and puts away your JPEG. But if you're going ahead and going to do some other things with your Photoshop file, if I were to close this, it's going to ask me to save it. Well, I just flattened all those areas of goodness there, and no, I don't want to save it. But I could also step backwards under Edit. You can step backwards, or there's a History panel as well, and you can find that under the Window drop-down menu. And it says Flatten Image. I can go backwards a step, which that's what I'd like to do. Alright, so I'm going to turn off the web and then turn back on news. I'm only going to do one of these. The news and the magazine, I'd save in the same manner, just renaming it slightly different than each other. But for print, what we need to do, and again, I want to flatten, okay, but you're going to need to save as after this. Do I want to discard the hidden layers? Yeah, and again, it's kind of scary. Sets it into place. Now I'm going to save this for newspaper. So you're going to do save as, which means that I don't save over my Photoshop file. Okay, so save as, and I'm going to choose this time a TIFF file format. That is typical of print. It's best for the quality. And let's just put news here, okay, for the naming convention of it. It's going to be a TIFF file. Click on Save. The LZW image compression, you might check with your printer to make sure if that's okay. Most of the time, I leave it at that. And for you Macintosh users, you know, there's enough PC users out there. I keep it at IBM PC. I'm okay with that. Macintosh, it kind of limits it. Mac will take about anything. Okay, so we'll click OK. All right, so it saved it. You notice here that the name is TIFF, so it put away the Photoshop file without saving those changes. So let me open it up, the recent, under File, Open Recent, and this was adjusted, the PSD. Okay, and when I open that up, okay, let's go. Did I open the right thing? No. Open Recent. No, Adjusted. All right, there it is. And so I've still got the layers. So the next thing I would do would be to turn the visibility off of everything else and turn the magazine on along with the background and save it again as a TIFF and rename it for magazine. Okay, that's it for our adjustments, and make your adjustments, practice this, and have some fun with it.